Good afternoon. Welcome to the IT Chronicles 10 in Tech. We're here live from Refresh 19 in Las Vegas. I'm here joined with my colleague, Carlos Casanova. I'm Kathleen Wilson, and today we have the pleasure of interviewing and learning more about MaestroQA from Anatole Doak. So
Thanks.
Could you enlighten us a little bit more about what your product does and what your integration points are?
For sure. So we're a quality assurance tool for customer support teams predominantly. The reason we're here at Freshworks is because we integrate with Freshdesk, we integrate with a few other CRMs as well, and then we'll pull in tickets to allow managers to grade those tickets between their agents and their customers. So to really coach and improve their CX teams.
And so some of those mediums are different though. So you could actually, it could be voice, law, and stuff. What are the different mediums that the managers can use MaestroQA to do the auditing and QA of tickets?
That's a really good question. So previously in the old world, it was really just phones, maybe occasionally an email, but in this omnichannel world that we exist in now, it's emails, it's phones, it's chats, it's social media. And whatever is in, for example, Freshdesk or Zendesk or Salesforce, it will be pulled into MaestroQA. And so that way the manager can grade whether it's a phone call, they'll listen to the phone call right within Maestro, whether it's an email or a chat, anything like that, they're able to have all of those different channels being graded within one tool so that they can compare, hey, maybe I need to coach a little bit more on calling, and maybe for chats or for emails, it's not as important at this time because they're doing better, for example.
So I would think so when all that data is, keeps getting, in a single platform, that's the key really.
Yep.
You can aggregate all that, you can look across it. So is it able to identify sort of patterns, trends, whether it's by location, by technology, by input channel? Is that sort of the capabilities that it provides?
For sure. So a lot of the challenges that we've seen is, for example, you have a BPO in the West Coast, on the East Coast, and then maybe offshore. So how do you make sure that each of those different sites is performing and is consistently giving your customers a good experience? So you're able to aggregate that data in one place in the reporting where you can filter by a specific area or a specific group. You can filter by specific channels, as I mentioned earlier, to identify where you need to focus a little bit more on coaching and where you can, for example, if your team on the West Coast is doing great at calls, but your team on the East Coast isn't, what best practices could we take away from that team and what could we use on the East Coast to really bump up the call scores there?
So it sounds like, because we've spoken to some other people, watched some of the sessions today, a lot of it's focusing on the tech. The tech and the features and the products and everything it does, but it sounds, well, my assumption too is that MaestroQA it's using technology to improve the agent or the customer service representative's experience or delivering value to customers. So what type of industries could benefit most from MaestroQA?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So especially in competitive spaces like food delivery or ride sharing, anything B2C facing is really, really competitive right now, and customers will leave if they have a bad experience, for example. So those types of industries are places that we've seen, like QA programs have great success, whether it's a reoccurring delivery service of either food or some of those style companies. I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head, but anything B2C facing is very much focused on that customer experience, and that's something that they can use as a differentiator that will really help those companies grow as well. If people say, oh man, I had a great experience at X company, I'm going to keep going back to them, that's really important as companies begin to grow and help get that reoccurring revenue up.
And especially those types of industries that you just shared is they start very small and they gain momentum very quickly. So sometimes when you're trying to expand your business, you may fail on customer service because you're not growing your customer service as well as your customer base and the services you provide.
For sure. And I think one thing that's really difficult is, customer service, customer experience, it tends to be more of a reactive thing where, okay,
Yeah.
shoot, we're growing so fast that like our support team just needs to double overnight. And that's going to create all sorts of problems on, hey, we have all these new reps coming in. How do we train them? How do we coach them? How do we make sure that our customers are, because if you have a good customer experience as a competitive advantage, and then all of a sudden you double the team overnight, how does that translate? So that's something that we've seen a lot of companies face, is that challenge. And then, there's the process, and then there's some of the technology, but it is a people business at the end of the day. So how do we coach the people in order to make those customer experiences amazing?
Right. And I would think, you brought up, obviously people, process, technology. We've been in this industry for quite a while. So we know that those are the three legs of the stool,
Yep.
and you're working on that people side, but the product itself also helps identify that it might be a technology deficiency, it might be a process deficiency, and it happens to be process deficiency, like you were saying, at this location, maybe not at the other location.
Right.
So from a growth perspective, I would think you could glean a lot of information in how we're going to scale this up. What has been working, what hasn't been working. Is this scalable? Is this not scalable?
Yep.
So does it help with that sort of identification, even though it's not the retraining of people, it's basically putting people in the right position to actually succeed.
Exactly. You said it so well there. It's
All right, we're done.
I'll just take this off. No, you said it so well that it's identifying repeatable and scalable processes. So, one person may be really good at a certain way to answer questions. So how can we make that repeatable? And then how can we identify that if it's only a specific person and the rest of the team is struggling with that?
Right.
So really making sure that the processes are best practice in order to scale efficiently, in order to grow how you want to grow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the danger in today's world, right? It's the bad stories will get out there so much quicker. They will grow so much faster versus the 20 great stories that most. And look, we all do it from a reviews perspective. How many times do you post a good review versus a bad review? And I know there's industry metrics around that stuff. So have you started looking even at that in terms of how you're working with your customers to identify those things and what to focus on? Some stuff obviously will be more important than others. So that teaching, that education that you were talking about, is that sort of the mentoring that it enables?
Yeah, I think, and that's a really good point, that everybody's going to go post a terrible experience, but no one really posts a good experience.
Right.
Maybe they'll post a great experience,
Yeah.
but it seems to be the two extremes. And so how do you mitigate those horrible experiences? And one thing that you could do is, for example, if the agent's tone of voice and they're really empathetic and understanding, which, that's something that managers could maybe be looking for. And in the current process, they're not looking for that because, maybe it's just, did they resolve the problem, yes or no? But if they're able to start looking for things like empathy, maybe that takes some of those bad reviews and just makes them neutral experiences because they're still being very empathetic to the customer, and that eliminates that problem and really just improves the overall CSAT score for customers.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. So if you can just lift the really, really bad ones up to, okay, it's still not the ideal experience, but it's much better than what that really helps overall. So.
And I think even more important than that is just identifying why those bad experiences happen and then preventing them from happening in the future.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
Reducing the top and the bottom of that horrible customer experience chasm, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're trying to shrink
true.
it, get everything.
Yeah.
It's like,
Because that really, really, really bad one is the one that's going to go viral.
Exactly.
It's not the it wasn't so great, it could have been better.
Yeah.
But, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope
thanks.
the rest of the conference goes well for you, and things, obviously it's an area that it's not going to get any easier for organizations. So
Absolutely.
wish you all the best, and thanks for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
thank you.